I am now a 17-year-old male with a strong belief in the supernatural. Several years ago, when I was in the fifth grade, I was bullied a lot starting from the very first day of school. It started literally within the first 30 seconds of getting on the bus that the bullying began. However, I doubt that these little details are actually related to my few unfantastical incidences. I moved from the house where these experiences took place slightly over a year ago. I was 12 when the slight experiences began. The first experience was on a cloudy day after I had gotten home from school. I was going to hang out in the woods behind my house, the place where I went to escape from my own bullying. And I saw her for the first and possibly the last time. I have poor eyesight and wear glasses, but she was so clear when I saw her. She seemed to be young. She was gray like the clouds, and she appeared to be dancing. She was small, spinning, wearing a floral sundress. I saw her and ran to her. She disappeared behind some trees, and then was gone. Later experiences with her did occur, I'm sure. There was a scent whenever she was around in the woods. It was a smell like rotten eggs, and something physical always occurred after the smell. However, I didn't smell it the first time I saw her. I think it's because I was too far away. The other two times I remember clearly were when my friend took a turtle shell, and I, inclined to believe in such things, went to return it. There was that vile scent, and I was tripped by something large in front of my foot, but nothing was there. The last time there was a smell and a shuffle of movement that ruffled the leaves that had fallen. Inside my home was where the worst of my mostly uneventful spiritual encounters had occurred. The first was I was playing games. A normal, kid thing, and I put my controller on the floor when I was done. Later, I looked down for no apparent reason and saw a perfectly solid, bright white hand reaching for controller that pulled back unbelievably fast and disappeared. I leaped from the bed to the door and hid from there for a while. One of my last few experiences may have been just my mind, but after these experiences, I couldn't ignore this one as being just in my head. I was always afraid of the dark and having my closet door open, but I slept in the dark anyways. However, I always closed the closet door every night. That night, I woke up to dark, and my closet doors were opening and closing, like they were being pushed and pulled by something. There was something in my closet, on the floor. It glowed white, and I had moved to get a good view of it, but my mind told me it was a skeleton. I froze until it stopped and ducked under the cover, until I eventually fell asleep from exhaustion once the terror passed. Now, my last experience at the house, and the one that frightened me the most, it was a normal night until I woke up from sleep. When I woke up, there was an odd yellowish light against the wall in my room, and in front of it, maybe a foot from my bed, was a tall, shadow figure. He was just staring at me. There were no facial features that I could make out, but he did have hair. I freaked out and started flailing in pure fright. I remember my foot flailed out towards it and touched the being. Then suddenly it was dark again, and I was laying in my bed, still staring at that one spot. Another that did scare me was one night a few years after all the others when I had sneaked out. This isn't something I normally did. I don't like doing bad things, but I did anyways to go see my girlfriend. I am still with this girl. By the way, I was biking down the road and heard a dog barking. I sped up because the thought of a dog attacking me was just scary. I turned my head on my bike to look towards the noise. A black dog was running across the road at me. I faced forward and pedaled as hard as I could. I could feel the dog closing in on me. Then a car passed by. I heard just a soft thump, like they had hit the dog. I wondered why they didn't stop and turned to look at the dog. But it was gone. Completely. None of these experiences have occurred again or seem to have any relevance in my life besides just scaring me. I have had no experiences since then. The only reason I think I had those experiences in the first place was the sadness from being bullied. I used to fall asleep every night, crying, and come home and cry to my mom about it. Bullying was something new to me at the time. Of course, there's nothing that can be done about these experiences, but I thought I would share my own experiences after reading so many others. Any thoughts or ideas about why this could have occurred, or maybe what any of it could mean would be helpful. Before I start, I'd like to say that I tell very few people this story. That is because most would not believe me. But let me assure you that everything you read here is 100% just as I saw it and remember it. With that out of the way, I'll begin my story. It was 2 summers ago, so I would have been about 13 when it happened. I was at my friend's house. Let's call her Kay. And so was another friend of mine, who I will call Jay. We were bored with nothing to do in the house when Kay got an idea. Kay had been getting pictures of orbs, some of which I have, because she uploaded them on my computer, all down her driveway and in the woods by her house at night, and she wanted to investigate. I, being the huge fan of the paranormal that I am, was automatically in. Jay, who at the time did not believe in the paranormal, tagged along to humor us. So we gathered my laptop, a camera, and mine and Kay's phones and left Kay's house to walk down the driveway. She lived on a big piece of land, and it was a very long driveway. We stopped about halfway down it, out of earshot of both houses. Her grandmother also had a house on the land, but closer to the road. We had to do it this way because her mother was very superstitious about these things. I remember her not even letting us watch movies involving possessions or demons in the house, because that was just asking for something bad to happen. Since Kay wasn't expecting any visitors to the house, and we would have been able to see them coming up the driveway long before they reached us, even if any showed up by surprise. We settled down right there on the ground, sitting in the middle of the driveway. On the way down, we had decided we'd do an EVP. EVP plans in mind, we set up my laptop's wireless webcam and started to record, not really having any idea what we were doing. We just asked it some standard, "Who are you? Can you show us yourself?" type questions. When we were done, we played it back. Nothing. That did not discourage either Kay or myself, but Jay was getting bored, as she did not believe in any of this. We tried to get her to be patient, and after a little coaxing, convinced her to be quiet for EVP round 2. This time we asked a few more questions, but I can't remember what. I remember not wanting to ask the entity how it died, because I'd read somewhere that you weren't supposed to do that. This time when we played it back, we had something. It was a bunch of whispers between our questions, and what sounded like a fence door slamming. Nobody had been whispering, and no fence had slammed while we were recording. There weren't even any fences with doors nearby. Feeling that we were definitely onto something, Kay and I got exited. We did a third EVP, and this time we asked it to be louder. We also asked if it was Kay's great-grandfather, who had died on the property. When we played this one back, the whispers were louder as we'd asked, but still not loud enough to be decipherable. Kay and I agreed to do one more EVP. This time, Jay decided she wanted to help. Turns out that by helping, she meant teasing. She taunted the entity, saying that there was really nothing there and that all of this was stupid. Kay went along with it because she wanted whatever this thing was to react. I went along with it out of curiosity. What was the worst that could happen, right? We played back the recording again, and we got the same slightly louder, but still undecipherable whispers from the third EVP. By now, all of us were getting bored, and we decided to give up and go play in the woods. So we walked up to her grandma's house, and I put my laptop and camera in a rocking chair on the porch. Kay and I kept out /, our phones on us, and we went to play in the woods. Jay ended up chasing us with a spray bottle of water, as Kay and I ran to the woods laughing and screaming. Everything was great until Kay realized her phone was no longer in her pocket. She panicked, knowing her dad was going to be angry if she lost the phone she'd just gotten. She also knew she wasn't going to get a new one because her SIM card was in this one. She asked me if I'd seen it fall out of her pocket, and I said no. If it had fallen out, I would have seen it or stepped on it, because I'd been running directly behind her in very densely packed woods. Kay still freaking out. We all decided to look for it. We'd been looking for it for about 5 minutes when I saw something that would change my life forever. This is where it gets unbelievable. It started out as just a blur in the corner of my eye. At first, I paid it no mind. I was on a mission to find Kay's phone, and I thought it was her dog, who liked to come with us on trips into the woods. It was a few seconds before it registered in my mind that Kay's dog had gone missing a week ago. I snapped my head up, the other girls paying no attention to me, as they were digging around in fallen leaves for a lost phone. What stood in the clearing a few feet from me is something I will never forget. It was about the size of a large dog. Like I said, at first I'd thought it was Kay's dog, with leathery brown skin. It had claws where paws would have been if it had been a dog, and a strangely elongated face. At first, its face was turned away from me, but when it, I assumed, sensed I had seen it swiveled its head around to stare at me. Except it couldn't stare because it had no eyes. It seriously reminded me of something from a movie Silent Hill. Just a wide mouth. It opened its mouth, and after a few seconds a terrible growl reached my ears. That growl is a sound I will always remember. It seemed to reach the core of my soul. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and I hope to never hear anything worse. I was still frozen on the spot when suddenly Jay's mom drove up and it disappeared. We walked out of the woods and to the driveway, me stunned, Kay and Jay having no clue about what had just happened. Jay's mom was there to get her, but she convinced her to let her stay just a little longer, so maybe she could help us find Kay's phone. Jay's mom left to go do something, promising to be back within the hour, I believe. Still sort of in shock, I followed the other two girls back into the woods, even though something deep within me told me not to. That was when I heard a second growl, and so did everyone else. We all looked at each other, and I quickly told them how I'd seen something, but I kept a lot of the details to myself, so I didn't sound crazy. At this point, Jay was probably scared, because she had heard the growl this time. Kay was definitely scared too, but torn because she wanted to find her phone. I told her I wasn't helping anymore, I was sorry, and went and sat on her grandmother's porch. To this day, we rarely talk about what happened. Nobody ever found the phone, and it was half jokingly agreed upon that whatever that thing was, it stole Kay's phone because we goaded it on with the EVP. Whether that is true or not, I will never know. I hesitate to call this thing a demon because that sounds to so many people like something that's not real. But with the fear it gave off, it's the best word I have to describe it. If it makes any difference, just a couple months ago, I found out from my history teacher that the road Kay lives on was KKK territory back in the day, and that many people were hung out there. Yes, I am a teenager, but this does not mean I'm making this up. I'm not sure if this is hormonal or something, so I'm wanting some feedback, please. I am a male. I have heard my name either said or whispered randomly. At first, I thought it was one of my friends. None of my friends were looking at me or trying to get my attention. This was at school, by the way. This happened last year. The same thing happened just a few months ago, and it was at school also. I was just finished taking a test. First one done as usual, and was walking back to my seat. When I got there, I was just standing since these were large tables for chemistry class. As I was looking at a cabinet, I heard my name whispered directly in my ear. It was clear as day. I looked toward my left, which was the direction the whisper came from, but there was only one person in that direction, and she was still working on her test. Nobody else to that side, and it didn't sound like her, though it was a female voice. Another situation happened a few years ago, like 3 or 4. I sleep in the same room as my nephew. We shared bunk beds at the time. I slept on the top bunk. Being as though I am older, well, I was sleeping one night. I was jarred awake by me hitting the floor right beside a nightstand that had points on it. I don't remember what time it was, but I do remember climbing right back into the bed and going to sleep. I woke up the next morning and my right elbow and knee hurt. The fall was about 5 feet, and the way I fell, I would have fallen right on the edge of the nightstand. I went out to the living room and told my mom I had fallen during the night, and she said that I would have hit the side of my nightstand if I did. The other night, this was recently, I had a friend over to spend the night. He is very sensitive to the paranormal. We slept in the living room on our large couch, his side facing into our kitchen. He told me that he could see several spirits in my kitchen. I asked him if any of them are malicious, and he said that they were mainly residual and could possibly be protective. When he said that, I instantly thought of when I fell off my bed. I told him about it, and he said that it was interesting. Is this just a coincidence or something paranormal? I don't want to get rid of anything. So don't say I need my house blessed, please. My husband and I bought our first home in March of 2011. We decided to change out the floors and do some painting starting last January. When we replaced our master bedroom floors is when the little boys started showing up. My husband tends to flick the fitted sheets in his sleep. One night the noise was getting to me, and I shook him and asked him to stop. He said it was not him making the noise, that it was keeping him up, too. I looked to my left, and that is when I saw him. We have a nightlight in the bedroom, so I could see him clearly. He looked to be about 4 years old, wearing a gray t-shirt and blue jean shorts. He had no shoes on and had glasses and blonde hair. He looked at me, giggled, and then disappeared. The next night, my husband saw him in our bathroom, just standing behind him at around 2:30 in the morning. I thought he may only show up in the bedroom or at night, but I was wrong. I was in my kitchen at around noon getting my dog's medicine when I saw something in my peripheral vision. I looked to my left and he was stooped behind the couch like he was playing hide and seek. I said, "Hi," and he giggled and took it toward the bedroom. I was startled but decided to go look for him. I checked our office and the bedroom but couldn't find him anywhere. He has made numerous appearances and seems to be shy but playful. He's only ever said, "Hi," once and waved. He seems to be scared of storms. That is when he comes sits at the foot of the bed the most. I have noticed shoes rearranged on my closet shelf, and both our cat and dog like to go sleep in there when they never showed much interest in our closet before. We have toys for when my nephew comes to visit that go off on their own or are moved from where we last put them. At Christmas, we spotted him peeking into the living room when we decorated our tree. He has never been past the couch in the living room. We are the third owners of the house. It was built in 1996. The couple we bought it from never mentioned losing a child, but then again we had more of a buyer/seller relationship rather than a friendly one. It makes me curious as to who he is and why he is in our home. We are not really frightened of him, just startled sometimes when we see him. However, we are becoming used to his little visits and pranks. My experience is very short, but very real. I should say that I was very close to my dad's parents. I spent a lot of time with them growing up. They lived close by, and I'd spend after school time at their house. My granddad and I were close. I loved spending time with him. After high school, I moved in with my grandma. I wanted out of the small town I was living in, and she needed help with my granddad, who was bedridden. He and I shared the downstairs, him in the den, and me in his old room. Eventually, he was moved to a home where he had around-the-clock care. At the time, I worked third shift except on the weekends. Shortly after his passing, I was woken up and he was at the foot of my bed. He was just looking at me, and we held eye contact for what felt like a long time. He faded out, and I did not have any other visits after that. On my honeymoon, my wife and I rented a cabin. Only her mom knew the phone number to the cabin. On the second day of the honeymoon, early in the morning, some voice said to me, "Your grandma has passed away." At 7 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. I jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. When I answered, it was my mother-in-law. She did not say hello or this is B. She said, as I had already heard, "Your grandma has passed away." My grandma had passed at about 4 in the morning when I had heard the voice. I've had all of my aunts and my mom tell me that after I moved out of her house and moved to my girlfriend, she was very upset. Everyone has told me that they think she waited to see us married before passing.